A document released by us shows that Tauron's management has requested an increase in their own salaries. Requests the general meeting of Tauron Polska Energia SA to adopt the updated remuneration policy for members of the management board and supervisory board of Tauron Polska Energia SA, the draft of which is attached to this resolution. Law and justice politicians do not hide their indignation at the situation. People who are supposed to pay rising bills don't have the money to do so, and Tauron is brazenly increasing the salaries of its executives, even though the company's profits are falling, or at least they are trying to. There is such a resolution. Such a resolution has been passed. The question is whether it has been implemented. In response to questions from our editorial board, we received a response from Tauron confirming the authenticity of the resolution. It describes it as an update of the remuneration policy which, according to the rules, takes place every 4 years. The remuneration policy only sets out the general principles of the remuneration system for members of the management board and the supervisory board, and does not include a decision on the level of remuneration of the management board. It is appalling that the request for raises came at a time when the company was making huge losses. In the first 6 months alone, the Tauron Group's net loss was almost 850 million zloty. In the same period under Law and Justice, the profit was almost 2 billion zloty. They are getting a bonus for simply destroying Poland, selling off what they can, reducing the value. And in 6 months, Tusk will come and say, well, these companies are not profitable. The financial situation of the company is one thing. From January, electricity prices will rise again as the state's economic shield comes to an end. The average Polish family will have to pay an extra 480 zloty a year. I don't know where this will all end. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. It's impossible to pay even from pensions. I am a bit worried because I have a small pension. I suspect it's already difficult to pay for electricity. Well, it is difficult. We are dealing with people, I don't know if they are people with a low intelligence quotient or just don't think. Well, we can't do anything about it. Despite pre-election promises, electricity prices have continued to rise, and there is no telling when this process will stop. The increases will hit the poorest first and foremost, and the directors of various companies and businesses will get through this crisis unscathed, even without increases. It's been an intense week for Donald Trump. It began with his return to Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday. Trump finished a speech that was interrupted by an assassin in July. Shortly after the rally, he gave an interview to Republika, directly from Trump Tower in New York.
Well, I love the Polish people. As you know, I was in Warsaw and made a speech, and the relationship with Polish people has just been extraordinary, and I hope they get out and vote for me, because the other side does not like the Polish people.
The Republican spoke warmly of Poland and Poles and encouraged Americans of Polish descent to vote for him. Up to 800,000 of them live in Pennsylvania alone.
But there's no president that's been better to the Polish people.
In an interview with Michał Rachoń, Donald Trump recalled that he opposed the construction of Nord Stream 2 and stood firmly against Russian imperialism.
We wouldn't have a war right now if I were president. This was done because we have incompetent leadership in the United States. There was no way that that war with Ukraine would be happening, and that threatens Poland.
Trump takes a tough stance on Russia and illegal immigrants, whom he wants to deport. The Republican wants to make America great again, which is why he emphasizes sound economic policy.
We have to drill, baby, drill. It's an expression they use. I think it's very good. It's very informative. It says what it is. It's drilling. We're going to drill for oil. We're going to cut people's energy prices within a 12-month period from January 20th by half, 50%, 50.
These concrete promises are resonating with a growing number of voters. Trump consistently prioritizes security, the economy, and family. He has made a pretty clear statement on electricity and electricity prices. The raw numbers are reaching people's hearts and minds, and they can easily calculate for themselves what will happen if Donald Trump is elected president. Americans see that such a choice will pay off for them, because when the economy grows, people benefit. Over the past week, Donald Trump has made gains among voters in the so-called swing states. This is where the percentage of undecided voters is highest. The Republican leads in Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina and Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris in Nevada, Michigan and Wisconsin are tied. In each of the key states, the battle is over every last voter. This is indeed evident because in these last weeks, the Republican message focuses on immigration policy, on economic policy. These are indeed the two issues that are of primary interest to Americans today. Donald Trump promises voters that he will uphold conservative values and prevent the spread of gender ideology in America, which is being vigorously promoted by Kamala Harris.
These maniacs that I'm running against, I would say one thing very simply: vote for Trump. If you vote for Trump, it's all going to disappear. We're going to be back to normal. We're going to be back to what it should be. We're going to be back to what God wanted, but we're going to be back to what everybody wants. We're going to be back to common sense, because we don't have common sense. These people are crazy.
The voice of reason is beginning to resonate with more and more Americans, disillusioned with the 4-year reign of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
This is the first such training in France, under the guidance of French instructors. Scenarios transferred directly from the battlefield are played out by Ukrainian soldiers. We are hosting the first Ukrainian soldiers, as we watched yesterday. This is a very unique model of cooperation. I would like to reiterate at this point the support of France for the Ukrainian resistance in the face of the Russian war of aggression. France is, so to speak, debunking Western media theories, rallying for an imminent end to the war and peace talks. Media reports on the matter have been circulating for several weeks. Their source is said to be the Kremlin itself.
It's not a topic of our discussions, any ceasefire with other allies, and we didn't speak about it. I saw in media something that today was a lot of information that I came to speak about ceasefire. No, it's not right. I don't know where Russia works a lot with media, with disinformation, so it's understandable. But thank you.
The Ukrainian president faces a difficult task. He has to convince Western leaders that he has an idea not to continue defending himself, but to break the deadlock on the Eastern Front. For that, he needs weapons of a certain type.
It's up to the allies, the individual allies, to decide how weapons they deliver into Ukraine can be used. Legally, that is possible, because legally Ukraine is allowed to use its weapons if they can hit targets in Russia, if these targets present a threat to Ukraine. But whether individual allies do that, that's in the end also always up to individual allies. Of course, we discussed this. I was last week in Kiev, we discussed it today.
At issue are missiles capable of striking targets deep inside Russia. The problem is that it is not in the interest of any of Ukraine's allies to take responsibility for authorizing their use against such targets. From the statements of politicians from a number of countries supporting Ukraine, one can assume what President Zelensky's plan for peace is supposed to be about. It's about gaining a strategic advantage over Russian supplies of equipment and supplies in the form of a dome against missiles, protecting Ukraine. The aim of our support, as I have said again today to President Zelensky, is to put Ukraine in the best condition possible to set up a negotiating table for peace. A negotiating table, as we have said many times, that doesn't mean surrendering, as too many have suggested, in a cowardly fashion. There has been some discussion around this thread in recent weeks. The vast majority of analysts believe that Ukraine must agree to surrender some of the territories seized by the Russians. The problem is that Ukraine, at least officially, does not allow such a scenario at all. Prosecutors allege that the 54-year-old used his employees, resources, and influence in the music industry to create a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice, among other things. Combs denies all charges.
The penalties that P. Diddy Combs is facing are severe. In the federal system, RICO cases, sexual trafficking cases have penalties of upwards of a minimum of 5 to 10 years up to life. And you can get for racketeering alone up to 20 years, as well as the predicate crimes, which are kind of the underlying crime.
In addition to trying to get him out of jail, the rapper's lawyers are also formulating a series of charges against federal authorities. Among them is the footage leaked to CNN TV of Diddy abusing his former partner in 2016.
You know, Dr. King called it the law of unintended consequences. So sometimes the more you push a person down, the stronger they get. And so he's making an adjustment. He had his family here today to support him. We really want to put an end to all of the clowning that we see on the internet. This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences, and all of us are addressing it accordingly.
In all likelihood, Diddy will remain behind bars until his trial begins, with the first hearing scheduled on the 5th of May, 2025, in the federal court in Manhattan, New York.
I knew that I said, baby, we gotta go, but we ain't gonna survive this. So we ended up going to a shelter and trying to wait it out. But as we were there, he was talking to one of his friends, and they was telling him, I see your roof lifting up. It wasn't gone then. Then we got another text message say, your roof gone.
We decided to stay because my father built this home 12 years ago, and it is built to withstand more than a Cat 5 hurricane. It's really impossible to describe, you know. I just kept saying it's unexplainable what it looks like, and it was. It just, witnessing that power was just, it was absurd, you know.